Moneyweb now. On the money.
This podcast is brought to you by Stanlib Asset Management. Invest in more global opportunities through their partnership with JP Morgan Asset Management. I'm chatting with Renee Coughlan, Product Portfolio Manager, FNB Wealth and Investments. Renee, appreciate the time. Your 2026 FNB Retirement Insights Survey just came out. A ton of data in it. I think the absolute headline number that stands out, 73% of South Africans under 60 now have a retirement plan. This is up from 60% in 2025. That is a giant improvement.
It is very encouraging to see, Simon. So in the 4 years that we've been doing this survey, we always wanted to see a positive movement. And when we saw the 73% are now having retirement plans, it was definitely very encouraging. I think people are just engaging more with the story about retirement, thinking about their own experiences now, but maybe what they've seen of their parents retiring as well. So it is just becoming like more of a topic of conversation out there.
That is a fair point. I look out and I think, I don't know what's changed. I suppose it is just an evolution. I like your point that, of course, our parents are retiring, maybe it's your grandparents, depending on how old we are, but we're seeing it starting to happen. And it is just an evolution and a conversation that has been, going on for as long as I can remember.
I think many people have avoided the retirement topic, thinking this is something I'm going to do when I'm 55. Or even like my own experience of my parents was my father only thought about it literally the day before he was actually going to retire.
Okay, that is very, very much last minute. The question is, they have a retirement plan. I suppose, is it a good enough retirement plan? And that's kind of like how long is a piece of string. And I suppose a plan's better than no plan. But of course, the T's and C's applies. How much has been saved? Is there enough disposable income being saved towards retirement?
Yes, absolutely. If you think about what a retirement plan actually consists of, the majority of our respondents said a retirement plan is, I have a retirement fund or a retirement annuity. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't sort of give us an insight into how much you're contributing. Is it enough? What is that desired picture that you have for your retirement years? And is this one thing going to get you there or not? Because it's really about the layers of retirement planning. So it's a multi-layered exercise. And it's not a once-off. You kind of have to go back every year and look at, am I actually on track? Have I covered all my bases? Because just having the RA is not enough. Do you have access to things like emergency savings for a capital expense? Your geyser bursts, you have a big medical expense that you hadn't even thought about. So your plan has to be robust enough and layers upon layers to make sure that you actually are not going to fall into that gap of not being correctly in line for retirement.
That's actually a great point. Retirement, yes, it's a date at some point in the future there will be, but even that's become flexible. The idea that you worked and then suddenly you stopped, like in the example of your father, there's a lot more to it and there's a lot more planning around it. Tax efficiencies, maybe estate planning as well, maybe side hustles. It's a lot more than just, well, I've got an RA.
Yes, absolutely. And that's something I saw that was sort of becoming another topic of conversation this year, is that we sort of had gauged side hustles over time to say people sort of were filling maybe a small gap with a side hustle. But what we're seeing now is for under and over 60s, side hustles are actually becoming the new normal. So it could be about, I need to generate extra income or I need extra income streams because I actually need more for my retirement plan than what I thought. But even retirees going into retirement, that day one, I'm no longer driving to my office. Is now, what am I doing? I need something to engage my mind. I need to make sure that I remain purposeful. And I also would like to have those extra income streams so then I can go and do all the other things that I would like to do.
That's a great point. Make no mistake, money is important and it's a huge part of retirement. But another huge part of retirement is now what? It's not, you retire at 65 with a life expectancy of 70. You retire at 65, got a life expectancy potentially 90 plus.
Yes, that's an important factor in your planning. So a lot of people sort of think, well, I'm going to retire and I'm only going to need money for 20 years. But when we're looking at mortality rates, people are living different lifestyles from what my grandparents did. They're much healthier. They're lasting longer in retirement. So you can't just do 20 years. You have to look at sort of a 40-year term and make sure that you actually have enough money to fund that. If you think about how many years do you spend working versus how many years could you potentially spend in retirement, it could be the same amount of years. So we really have to make sure that we keep those calculations going. And as I said, go and check in at least every year, 2 years. Am I actually on track or not?
And that's a great point. And I hadn't thought of it that way. We might be retired as long as we were working, but there's also uncertainty. Yes. And I suspect just the hard, stark reality is that we don't quite know what those retirement expenses are going to be. And some of them, I mean, particularly healthcare, but perhaps just good old fashioned inflation, perhaps family responsibility. There's a lot of unknown in retirement.
There is. And very difficult, as you say, to plan for the unknowns. But if we sort of look at a paradigm for me was looking at what are people spending right now if they're under 60, because it was always sort of this misconception that, when I'm retired, I'm only going to need 50% of my income. But if you actually look at how people are allocating their incomes right now, the under 60s and the over 60s are pretty much a mirror image. So we mustn't think that we are going to have all this extra money because we're no longer working. Those expenses have replacements of new expenses. So things I was looking at, like the cost of retirement villages. What is your medical aid contribution going to be when you are in your elderly years? What are those hospital expenses going to be? So I'm no longer driving to work or buying nice corporate suits, but those expenses are just replaced with other things.
Actually, that's a fair point. It's different expenses. Still expenses there, but lurking differently. We'll leave it there. That's Renee Coughlan. She's Product Portfolio Manager, FNB Wealth and Investments, the 2026 FNB Retirement Insight Survey. Appreciate the time. This podcast is brought to you by FNB Asset Management. Invest in more global opportunities through their partnership with JP Morgan Asset Management.